Kris Kross burst onto the scene in the early 90s with more swagger than anyone expected from two middle school kids. They came out of nowhere, turned heads with a trademark backward clothing style, and unleashed a chart-topping hit so catchy that even seasoned rappers had to respect it. Millions of fans around the world couldn't get enough of their boyish confidence and addictive beats. Yet behind the curtain of sudden fame, something unsettling was at play. Secrets, struggles, and a tragic twist that would shatter the hearts of those who loved them. What really happened to Kris Kross? How did these best friends, discovered by a rising producer, rocket to global stardom, only to have one member vanish from the spotlight before losing his life far too soon? Today, we're diving deep into their journey. The unstoppable rise, the alliances and rivalries, the haunting final performance, and the shocking discovery that still leaves fans questioning what might have been. Keep watching until the end, because the real story of Kris Kross goes well beyond the hit singles. It's a dramatic tale of childhood friendship, the harsh reality of fame, and a sudden loss that shook the entire hip-hop community. Chris Kelly and Chris Smith first met as carefree kids in Atlanta, long before anyone even knew they could rhyme. They were just two friends who stuck by each other from the first grade onward, sharing jokes, fashion tips, and a growing love for music. At this point, they had no clue that fate was about to intervene in the most extraordinary way. The turning point came in 1990 at Atlanta's Greenbrier Mall. An 18-year-old producer named Jermaine Dupri happened to spot Kelly and Smith among the bustling crowd. They weren't rapping. They weren't trying to get discovered. Yet their energy, style, and casual confidence made them stand out so much that Dupri felt compelled to approach them. He saw the spark of something new, something playful, raw, and full of potential. Without hesitation, he took both boys under his wing. In a world where most young, aspiring artists struggled to get noticed, Kris Kross had the opposite experience. They didn't even know they wanted to be rappers until a chance encounter made them the center of a producer's vision. That what-if moment at the mall changed everything. Dupri saw a fresh path in them, a youthful approach to hip-hop that could cross over into the mainstream, all while staying true to the genre's roots. They were about to redefine early 90s rap with a single word that still resonates to this day: jump. But the road to stardom didn't just begin and end with a catchy tune. Under Dupri's guidance, Kris Kross landed a deal with Rough House Records, an affiliate of Columbia, and the race to record their debut album began. The result was Totally Crossed Out, a project produced almost entirely by Dupri himself. Released in 1992, it quickly became a cultural phenomenon. The group's signature style? Wearing their clothes backward, an unforgettable image that had kids across America, and even across the world, rummaging through their closets, trying to copy the look. Their breakout single, Jump, was something nobody could ignore. It soared to the top of the Billboard Hot 100, holding the #1 spot for 8 consecutive weeks. This wasn't just a small victory for two young rappers, it was a seismic shift in hip-hop. Suddenly, you had kids of all backgrounds bobbing their heads to a rap track about having fun. Kris Kross accomplished something many older artists had struggled with, bridging the gap between underground hip-hop credibility and mainstream pop appeal. The music video for Jump, directed by Rich Murray, became just as iconic as the track. In bright colors and a playful setting, Chris Kelly and Chris Smith radiated an infectious energy that had fans rushing to see them live. The single flew off the shelves, the album went quadruple platinum, and the media crowned the duo as the next big thing. Everyone wanted a piece of Kris Kross, but every skyrocketing success has a backstage story, and theirs was only getting started. Little did they know, the attention pouring in from fans, media, and even legendary superstars would catapult them to new heights and new pressures. In the months following Totally Crossed Out's release, Kris Kross became more than just another rap act. They turned into full-blown pop culture fixtures. Their success laid down a track that led straight to Michael Jackson, who invited them to join part of his Dangerous World Tour. For two preteens, it was like stepping into a dream, traveling the globe, standing on massive stages, and opening for the king of pop himself. They didn't just stop there. In Jackson's Jam music video, Kris Kross made a cameo appearance alongside Michael Jordan. This was another level of exposure, tying them to not one, but two cultural icons in a single production. Word spread that these two kids from Atlanta weren't just riding a lucky wave, they were shaping the direction of youth-oriented hip-hop. By the early 90s, their influence was visible everywhere, from the high rotation of their music videos on MTV to their cameos in other artists' videos, like TLC's Hat to Da Back and Run DMC's Down with the King. Their playful, rebellious style combined with undeniable talent made them stand out in a scene crowded with older, more experienced MCs. Pop stars, R&B singers, and major hip-hop acts were all paying attention. Even a cameo in a major motion picture, Who's the Man? Became another notch in their belt of cultural achievements. But while fans sang every word of Jump and Warm It Up, critics began to question how these teen superstars would mature within an evolving music scene. The market was ready for more from Kris Kross, but they had no intention of staying kids forever. All that adoration was about to collide with creative restlessness and the raw competitiveness of the rap world. By 1993, Kris Kross was eager to shed the bubblegum image. Their second album, Da Bomb, showcased a tougher sound. Suddenly, those bright, carefree hooks gave way to something darker, more street-oriented. Production was still led by Jermaine Dupri, but it was clear the boys wanted to prove they were more than just fun and games. Tracks like I'm Real directly addressed rivals who were gunning for the throne of young rap kings. Groups like Da Youngstas, Illegal, and Another Bad Creation were also fighting for the spotlight. Kris Kross threw down the gauntlet, letting everyone know they had no plans to be overshadowed. The result? A surge of competitive energy that spilled over into lyrics and live performances. One of the standout moments on Da Bomb was the introduction of Da Brat, a newcomer discovered by Chris Smith. Featuring her on the title track gave them added credibility. Among hip-hop purists, fans got a glimpse of how Kris Kross was building a creative circle, one that would expand the So-So Def empire even further. Although Da Bomb went platinum, it didn't quite eclipse the massive popularity of Totally Crossed Out. Still, it made a statement. Kris Kross could adapt, change, and grow, but with that evolution came inevitable growing pains. And while they shifted their style and navigated these rivalries, something was beginning to brew behind the scenes. Issues that ran deeper than chart positions. Most fans only saw Kris Kross as the unstoppable duo with flashy outfits, playful swagger, and a few pointed lyrics aimed at their competition. Off-camera, the pressures of the music industry were starting to weigh heavily. Continuous touring, intense media attention, and the need to remain relevant year after year placed them in a challenging spot. Chris Kelly, in particular, had hidden battles. Over time, rumors spread of substance use. Close friends noticed he sometimes disappeared from the public eye, only to reemerge looking thinner, quieter, as if he were fighting demons that wouldn't let him go. It wasn't an entirely unfamiliar story in the entertainment world. Young stars often face temptations that can quickly spiral out of control. But for Kris Kross's fans, the idea that one half of their beloved duo might be drifting into a dangerous lifestyle was tough to comprehend. Meanwhile, Chris Smith appeared to keep a lower profile. He studied business, management, and marketing, preparing for life beyond rap. Kelly, ever the creative spirit, had begun focusing on engineering and production. He even formed his own label, C Connection Records. Behind the scenes, both men were maturing, forging separate identities, and mapping out futures that weren't solely defined by jump-worthy anthems. Yet the real test of their bond and their individual resilience was about to come. And when it did, the outcome would haunt the hip-hop world. As the hip-hop scene shifted in the mid-90s, heavily influenced by West Coast G-Funk and East Coast lyricism, Kris Kross felt the need to adapt once more. Their third album, Young, Rich, and Dangerous, dropped in 1996. No longer were they the pint-sized kids with squeaky voices and childlike bravado. They were older teenagers with deeper vocals, more streetwise lyrics, and a sophisticated production style under Jermaine Dupri's guidance. Tracks like Tonight's the Night showed a cool, almost mature vibe, addressing nightlife, success, and adult relationships. It was a departure from the high-energy, youthful hooks that had once defined them. The accompanying music video displayed a polished look. No more backward overalls or playful sets. Instead, you saw a sleek nighttime, party aesthetic. The duo wanted everyone to know they weren't kids anymore. Although Young, Rich, and Dangerous achieved gold certification, it didn't match the quadruple platinum frenzy of their debut. The rap landscape had become more competitive, with artists like Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., and Nas elevating lyricism and storytelling to new heights. Listeners seeking gritty realism sometimes dismissed Kris Kross as a relic of the early 90s. Yet, for those who stuck around, the final album hinted at a duo poised to transition into adult artistry. But right when fans thought they'd see a new, fully grown version of Kris Kross, fate intervened with a devastating blow. Fast forward to February 23, 2013, Jermaine Dupri organized a massive 20th anniversary celebration for So So Def at the historic Fox Theater in Atlanta. The lineup was stacked with big names: Xscape, Da Brat, Bow Wow, and more. In the midst of it all, Chris Kelly and Chris Smith reunited on stage for the first time in years. The crowd erupted. The energy was electric. People were transported back to the days when Jump ruled the airwaves. To fans, seeing them together again was a dream come true. They ran through classic hits and teased the possibility of new collaborations. For a brief moment, it felt like time had rewound to the era of backward clothes and unstoppable chart dominations. Little did anyone know, that night was the last time Kris Kross would ever perform as a duo. Just a few months later, on May 1, 2013, the world received crushing news. Chris Kelly had been found unresponsive in his Atlanta home. Paramedics rushed him to a hospital, but it was too late. At the age of 34, Kelly was pronounced dead. Preliminary reports hinted at substance-related causes, though fans held on to hope that this was all just a misunderstanding. Sadly, the official toxicology confirmation came later. Kelly had OD'd on a lethal mix known as a speedball. The impact was immediate and profound. Jermaine Dupri, who discovered Kris Kross and watched Kelly grow from a shy kid into a global superstar, said Kelly was like the son I never had. Chris Smith, reeling from the loss of his closest friend since first grade, spoke out in a heartfelt tribute. He called Kelly his brother, his partner, the other half of what made Kris Kross a force in hip-hop. Together, they had traveled the world, topped charts, and inspired countless young fans. Now, half of that legacy was gone forever. Tributes poured in from every corner of the industry. LL Cool J, Snoop Dogg, Da Brat, and even younger artists who had grown up idolizing Kris Kross sent their condolences. Social media flooded with memories of wearing clothes backward in the early 90s, blasting Jump on repeat, and watching the duo's music videos on MTV. Fans and celebrities alike were united in grief over losing someone who left such a bright imprint on hip-hop culture. But the story didn't end with mourning. The shock forced many to reflect on the pressures of early fame and the hidden battles that artists sometimes face alone. Even as the shock wore off, the question lingered. How could two best friends from Atlanta rise to such heights, only to have it end in tragedy for one of them? Perhaps the answer lies in the nature of fame. For Chris Kelly and Chris Smith, success came at an age when most kids are barely learning how to handle peer pressure, let alone global attention. The swirl of tours, record deals, interviews, and creative demands was a lot to bear. Kelly wrestled with addiction issues for years. Some say the bright lights of stardom only intensified those struggles. Smith found solace in business and entrepreneurship, preferring to move behind the scenes, shape artists' careers, and keep a firm footing in reality. Their paths diverged, even though they'd forever be linked by their childhood bond and the phenomenon they created together. Still, Kris Kross remains a cultural reference point. The name alone brings a wave of 90s nostalgia. Memories of vibrant music videos, unstoppable dance floors, and a youthful spirit that appealed to everyone. For many, hearing Jump today triggers a burst of energy that's hard to replicate. The duo's unique style broke open doors for other young artists. And even after some critics dismissed them as a novelty, they showed the world that teen rap acts could sell millions, land global tours, and command mainstream respect. Their final performance at the So So Def anniversary concert, in hindsight, feels like a precious farewell. Fans didn't realize they were witnessing history that night, an enduring group's last hurrah on stage together. Smith carries on the name with love and loyalty, always honoring his late friend's memory. Whenever the topic of Kris Kross arises, he speaks with gratitude for their fans and for the partnership that changed both their lives forever. In the end, maybe the greatest takeaway is this: even at the highest pinnacles of fame, human struggles don't disappear. The story of Kris Kross is a vivid reminder that while a hit single can soar to the top of the charts overnight, no one, not even the most iconic young superstars, is immune to life's darkest challenges. Their tale serves as both an inspiration and a cautionary note. Success can be glorious, but it can also be fleeting and filled with unseen battles. So the next time you hear Jump playing in some 90s throwback mix, take a moment to remember Chris Kelly, the energy he brought to every lyric and every stage, and Chris Smith, who continues to champion their legacy. Reflect on the whirlwind that swept these two friends into a life they never dreamed of and the heartbreak that followed. Fame might be dazzling, but as Kris Kross's story shows, it can also come with a devastating cost. Kris Kross changed the face of early 90s hip-hop. They were the kids who made everyone want to flip their clothes backward and bounce to a track that refused to leave the top of the charts. Their bond was real, rooted in a friendship that started in elementary school. But as they found out, stardom magnifies everything: the joy, the pressure, and the personal struggles. In losing Chris Kelly, the music world lost a creator who helped define a generation. Yet the legacy of Kris Kross endures. Their story teaches us about the power of youthful ambition, the importance of genuine connections, and the harsh truth that even unstoppable stars can fall victim to hidden battles. Let this be a reminder: behind every chart-topping phenomenon, there's a real person facing real challenges. So ask yourself, what could Kris Kross have accomplished if circumstances had played out differently? Would we have seen a new era of their sound, a rebirth that took them into full adulthood as innovators in hip-hop? We may never know, but we do know that Kris Kross left a mark no one can erase. They gave us an anthem that still commands a crowd to this day. They gave us a glimpse of how two energetic friends from Atlanta could captivate the globe. And though tragedy cut their story short, their music, their style, and their impact live on in every generation that discovers them.